Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy immersive stories, compelling characters, and chapters that stay with you long after they end, you're in the right place. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a new release, and share the channel with fellow readers who appreciate powerful storytelling. Let's begin. Chapter 16, Moment of Ecstasy. Jasmine watched the bathroom door close softly behind him and sat very still in the tub, listening to the distant sounds of Anthony moving through her apartment. A drawer opened, a cabinet shut, the faint clink of glass. It was surreal, having him in her space, his presence moving from memory to reality in a few quiet footsteps. The candlelight softened the edges of everything. Lavender steam curled around her face. Her heartbeat seemed to echo in the tiled room. "You asked for this," she reminded herself. "You wanted to see what it would feel like to let someone in again." A gentle knock sounded. "Jasmine," his voice came through the door, low and warm. "Are you decent, or should I wait?" She smiled in spite of her nerves. "You can come in." The door opened slowly. Anthony stepped inside and paused, taking her in. She was sunk deep in the bubbles, knees drawn up, shoulders bare, skin gleaming in the candle glow. His gaze moved over her face, then settled on her eyes and stayed there. "You look like the cover of somebody's favorite dream," he said softly. Her cheeks warmed. "You have a line for everything." "No," he replied, closing the door behind him. "I save the good ones for the right woman." He set a small tray on the counter. A folded black satin throw, a bottle of scented oil, 2 tea lights in tiny glass holders, a single rose, the petals deep red and perfect. There was nothing cheap about any of it, nothing rushed. She watched him, her body both relaxed and alert at the same time. "Are you sure?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "We can sit on your couch and talk all night." "I am fine with that. I meant what I said on the phone. I do not want to be another bad decision in your story." Her throat tightened at the care in his words. "I know," she whispered, "and that is why I said yes. I trust you. That scares me, but I do." He nodded slowly, as if receiving something holy. "Then tonight is about you," he said, "not proving anything, not replacing anyone, just you remembering what your body can feel when it is handled with care." The words made something tremble inside her. He reached for a towel and held it up. "Let me help you out." She lifted her body carefully from the tub, water streaming down her skin, bubbles sliding away. For a moment she felt exposed, almost shy. He turned his face slightly, giving her modesty while still holding out the towel like a shield. She stepped into it. He wrapped it around her slowly, the fabric hugging her curves. His hands stayed at her shoulders a second longer than necessary, warm and steady. "Thank you," she murmured. "Any time," he replied. He guided her into the bedroom, where he had already transformed the space. The overhead light was off. The room glowed with small pools of candlelight. The satin blanket he had brought lay spread across the foot of the bed, scattered with soft rose petals the color of wine. Her speakers hummed with quiet jazz, the saxophone a smooth river in the background. She noticed a single red rose on the pillow, but her gaze was quickly turned back to Anthony. She drew in a breath. "Anthony, this is beautiful." "You deserve beautiful," he said simply. He took her hand and led her to the edge of the satin. "Lie down on your stomach," he said gently. "If at any point you want me to stop, you say the word and I stop. No questions, no guilt." She held his gaze, searching for any sign of game plan, any hint of performance. She did not see it. She saw a man who knew exactly how powerful he could be and was choosing restraint. She nodded and stretched out on the satin, the towel still wrapped around her. The cool fabric kissed her bare calves and feet, a contrast to the heat building low in her belly. He knelt beside her and opened a bottle of oil. The soft scent of coconut and vanilla rose into the air. "You ever heard of the Kama Sutra?" he asked with a faint smile. She laughed nervously. "I have heard of it. I have definitely never studied it." Good, then I can introduce it to you my way, he said. Think of it less like a book of positions and more like a language of honor. Pleasure with purpose, presence, respect. He rubbed the oil between his palms until it warmed. Then he set his hands gently on her shoulders. The first touch made her inhale sharply. He moved in slow circles, working the tension from her muscles, pressing, kneading, learning. His hands felt different from any she had known. Not rushed, not greedy. He touched her like he was memorizing a prayer. You carry so much up here, he murmured, his thumbs digging into the knots at the base of her neck. Stress, she whispered. Fear, old memories, things I never said out loud. Let your body say them tonight instead, he said. You do not have to hold them alone. He worked down her back, long strokes that slid along either side of her spine. With each pass, her breathing slowed and deepened. He poured a little more oil and moved to her arms, taking each one in turn, gliding from shoulder to wrist and back again. When he reached her hands, he massaged each finger as if it mattered, smoothing away the small tightness she had not noticed she carried in her palms. He shifted to her legs. May I? He asked quietly from behind her. You can keep the towel on. I just want to help you exhale. She nodded, already floating somewhere between earth and sky. His hands began at her calves, sliding from ankle to knee in firm, methodical strokes. Each touch sent tiny sparks up her thighs. He pressed his thumbs into the muscles that had carried her through endless days of pretending she was fine. He worked slowly higher, stopping just before the place where her towel began. Her legs, held tight at first, softened and eased apart on their own. He felt the change and did not rush into it. Instead, he leaned forward and kissed her shoulder, a soft brush of lips against damp skin. You are doing fine, he whispered. You are safe here. Tears pricked the corners of her eyes. No one had said those words to her in a space like this, not ever. After a while, he touched the edge of the towel. Can I see you? He asked. Only as much as you are ready to give. Her answer surprised even her. Yes. He loosened the towel and drew it back slowly, exposing her back fully. The air felt cool for a second, then his hands returned warm and deliberate. He traced the line of her spine with his palms, paused at the small of her back, then glided out over the curve of her hips. A low sound slipped from her throat. It had been a long time since she had made that sound for anyone. The massage was complete as Jasmine laid there in her moment thinking about what could possibly be next. The night unfolded slowly at first, then without measure. What began as careful exploration turned into something neither of them had anticipated. The rose he had brought rested near the pillow, its scent soft but steady in the room. Jasmine reached for it at one point, fingers brushing the velvet petals as if grounding herself in something tangible. Anthony noticed. He took the long-stemmed rose gently from her hand and studied her face. There was a quiet question in his eyes, not dominance, not performance, just invitation. You like that it is real, he said softly. Yes, she admitted. It feels different from everything else. It is not pretending. He nodded once, then trailed the stem lightly along her shoulder, down her arm, across her waist. Not teasing, not taunting, almost reverent. The petals brushed against her skin like a whisper, each touch deliberate, each pause intentional. Her breathing changed. He was not using it to impress her. He was including her in it. Tell me what you feel, he murmured. Present, she said. I feel present. He leaned closer, his voice lower. Then stay here with me. When the rose moved lower, tracing the line of her thigh, she did not tense. She did not retreat into memory. She stayed inside her body. That alone felt revolutionary. For years, intimacy had been something she endured and performed through, something she measured against expectations, something that required her to disappear slightly in order to survive it. Tonight, she did not disappear. Anthony's hand followed the path of the rose, slow, attentive, patient. He watched her face, not just her body. Every shift in breath, every tremor, every flicker of hesitation. You are not somewhere else, are you? He asked gently. No, she whispered. I am right here. He pressed his forehead to hers. Good. Stay. The hours that followed were not frantic. They were immersive. They unfolded in layers. Conversation melted into touch. Touch melted into confession. Confession melted into heat. At one point, she pulled away slightly, her eyes clouding. I used to think I had to prove something, she said quietly. That if I was good enough, desirable enough, loyal enough, I could prevent betrayal. Anthony stilled. You never had to perform for love, he said.
And you definitely never had to earn respect. The words landed somewhere deeper than the pleasure had. She looked at him then, really looked at him. This was not just about sensation, it was about rewriting memory. Stay with me, she said, not as a plea but as a request for partnership. He did. What followed was not rushed and it was not mechanical. It was rhythmic. Two people choosing to remain open instead of hiding. He moved with intention, checking in without breaking momentum, guiding without overpowering, responding instead of taking. At one point, when her breath hitched and old fear flickered briefly behind her eyes, he slowed immediately. Talk to me, he said. I am okay, she answered, just remembering. Then let us replace it, he replied quietly, and they did. He shifted, sitting beside her again. Jasmine, he said softly, I want to try something. If you are not comfortable, you say so. No heroics, no pretending. What is it? She asked, voice unsteady. He held up a strip of black silk, the corners of his mouth lifting. A blindfold, not to take anything from you, to give you something. When you cannot see, every other sense steps forward. You feel more, hear more. Your own breath becomes a drum. But if it feels like too much, I would take it off in a heartbeat. Her chest tightened. Old fear rose up, sharp and icy. The thought of not seeing made her stomach flutter with nerves. Yet another part of her, the one that had stood in a cafe at 2 a.m. and walked toward a stranger because something in her spirit recognized something in his, leaned toward the idea. Will you stay close? She asked. I will not leave you, he said. Not for one moment. You have my word. Then, yes, try it. He moved around to face her and helped her roll onto her back. The satin caressed her shoulder blades. The candles painted soft gold across the planes of his face. His eyes held no mockery, no hunger that felt dangerous, only intent. Last chance to change your mind, he said quietly. She took a long breath. I trust you, Anthony. He swallowed, like the words landed deeply. Then he gently tied the silk over her eyes. The world dimmed. The room vanished. All that remained was the sound of the music, the soft flicker of the candles, and the warmth of his hands. He tested it with a small gesture, waving his fingers in front of her face. Can you see anything? Nothing, she whispered. Good, he said. Then all you have to do is feel. His fingers brushed her temple, then slid slowly down the side of her face, tracing her jaw. He cupped her chin, thumb resting at the corner of her mouth. She parted her lips slightly without meaning to. He did not kiss her right away. He let the moment stretch, let anticipation build, let her own mind paint pictures. When his mouth finally met hers, it was slow and thorough, a kiss that did not ask, "Are you ready?" but instead declared, "I am here." His lips moved with patience that made her toes curl. He tasted like mint and something she could not name. She lifted her hand blindly, fingers finding the back of his neck, pulling him closer. Heat pulled low in her body. His mouth left hers and journeyed across her cheek, to the hollow beneath her ear, down the length of her neck. Each kiss sent sparks racing over her skin. He lingered where her pulse fluttered fast and wild. "You were trembling," he murmured. "You did that," she replied. "Good," he said against her skin. His hand slid over her, learning her shape with reverence. Over her collarbones, down to the gentle swell of her breasts, around the curve of her waist. He did not grope, he explored. Every touch said, "I see you. I am grateful you are here." When his mouth closed over one taut peak, heat shot straight through her. She arched without thinking, a breathless sound escaping her lips. His tongue teased and soothed, his hand cradling the other side of her chest like something precious. The blindfold magnified everything. The scratch of his stubble, the warmth of his breath, the way his chest rose and fell faster against her arm. "Anthony," she sighed. "Yes, I feel like I am floating." "That is the idea," he said. His kiss traveled lower, over the center of her body, tracing the soft lines of her abdomen. His hands slid beneath her, lifting her gently, guiding her in small movements that made her hyper-aware of every inch where their skin touched. She felt his breath near her hips and bit down on a tremor. Whatever he did next was not rushed. It was slow, deliberate invitation. The music rose, the candles flickered, the world narrowed to sensation and trust. He found new ways to draw sounds from her throat she did not know she could make, coaxing her to unravel one careful inch at a time. There were moments when she forgot her own name, moments when all she knew was light behind her blindfold and the feeling of being cherished from the inside out. Her fingers curled into the satin, her legs tightened, then softened, then tightened again as waves of pleasure built and broke in rhythms that felt bigger than anything she had experienced in years. He murmured encouragement against her skin, his voice a steady anchor through every crest and fall. At the peak of it, when she shattered in a rush of heat and helplessness, she did not feel ashamed. She felt claimed by joy, pure, fierce, breath-stealing joy. She collapsed back onto the blanket, chest rising and falling fast, a stunned laugh slipping from her lips. "You all right?" he asked, brushing hair from her forehead. She nodded, pulling in air. "I did not know my body could feel like that," she whispered. He chuckled softly. "That is only chapter 1, he said. She reached for the blindfold with clumsy fingers. "I want to see you." He untied it and let it slip away. The room swam into view, hazy at first, then sharpening. His face hovered above hers, eyes dark and tender, mouth curved into a quiet smile. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she echoed. He lay down beside her and pulled her against his chest. For a long time, they did not speak. Their breathing synced, slowing together. Her fingers traced idle circles over his arm. She could feel his desire still simmering, the evidence of his own restraint pressed against her hip, but he did not rush her. "You did all that and you were just going to lie here?" she teased softly. He kissed the top of her head. "Trust me, there is nothing I want more than to forget every good intention I ever had," he admitted. "But tonight was about showing you you can be touched without being taken for granted." "We don't have to be afraid," he whispered, locking eyes with her as he promised that together they could explore every sensation, turning this new addition into a symbol of their trust and a way to deepen the bond they shared. Jasmine's pulse fluttered beneath his touch, her breath catching as her fingers brushed against the smooth, cool silicone. A nervous laugh escaped her lips, a mix of apprehension and intrigue. I don't know, Anthony. It feels like a lot," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. He just smiled, his gaze soft and reassuring, as he leaned in to capture her mouth in a deep, lingering kiss, his hand gently guiding hers to turn the toy on. A low hum vibrated against her palm, sending a jolt of anticipation through her. He pressed it against her inner thigh, letting her get used to the sensation before slowly, deliberately moving it higher. Anthony switched the toy off and set it aside, gathering her into his arms, but her body refused to settle. Long after the pleasure had crested, her legs continued to tremble, the muscles quaking with a life of their own. "Anthony," she whispered, her voice shaky and awed. I can't stop shaking." He just held her tighter, pressing a soft kiss to her damp forehead. "I know, love," he murmured. "Just feel it. Let it remind you how much you enjoyed it." The aftershocks pulsed through her, a testament to the overwhelming experience that had left her utterly and beautifully wrecked in his arms. 5 straight hours passed in a blur that felt less like indulgence and more like reclamation. The rose lay discarded at some point. She felt slightly bruised from being pressed between them, but still beautiful. The room shifted from evening to deep night, and neither of them noticed. They were not chasing climax. They were building connection. There were moments when she laughed unexpectedly, moments when she cried without fully understanding why, moments when she clung to him, not out of desperation, but out of choice. For the first time in years, intimacy did not feel like something being taken from her. It felt like something being shared. When she finally reached that breaking point again, it was not overwhelming. It was expansive. The release moved through her body without shame, without apology, without that lingering emptiness she used to feel afterward. He held her through it, not triumphantly, tenderly. When she finally lay still against him, exhausted and altered in a way that felt sacred rather than reckless, she realized something quietly profound. Her trauma had not vanished, but it no longer owned the room. Anthony brushed his fingers through her hair as they caught their breath. "I'm glad I stayed," he said softly. "So am I," she answered. He kissed her temple. "That is how it is supposed to be." The candles had burned low. The music had long since faded. Outside, the city continued moving, unaware that inside this room, something invisible had shifted. Jasmine rested her hand over her heart and felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Not fantasy, not escape, not validation, but agency. As sleep slowly approached, her final thought was not about Lewis or betrayal or loss. It was this: maybe healing does not always arrive quietly. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in warmth, holding a rose, asking permission before it touches you. Chapter 17. The Morning After. After Anthony left and the apartment settled into silence, Jasmine stood alone in her bedroom. The candles had burned out, leaving behind a fragrant, smoky scent. The sheets still held warmth. The rose he brought lay on the nightstand, slightly bruised and missing petals, its scent faint but lingering. Beside it, the other rose, the one he had placed in her hand with steady patience. The one he introduced not as something to replace him, not as competition, not as a performance, but as an extension of her own pleasure. He had not taken control of it. He had guided her toward it. That mattered. She picked it up carefully. The shape was elegant, petals layered in deep red curves. It did not look clinical or mechanical. It looked intentional, designed, feminine but strong. He had not laughed when he presented it. He had not been threatened. He had not stepped aside. He had stayed. That was what made it special, not the object itself, the way he honored it. She walked to her dresser and pulled open the bottom drawer. From beneath neatly folded silk scarves sat a structured box. Bold, clean, deliberate. The joy box. The top was a confident red, not bright, not loud, controlled, intentional. The bottom was matte black, grounded, private, secure. She lifted the lid slowly. Inside, the interior was smooth and cushioned, designed for discretion and protection. A space meant to keep what matters sanitized, separated, preserved, not tossed into a drawer, not hidden in shame, stored with care. She reached for the rose she had used earlier in the evening, cleaned it carefully, dried it, examined it. There was no embarrassment in her movements, only ownership. She placed it inside the joy box with intention, not as something secretive, not as something illicit, but as something chosen, a reminder, a symbol of the night she stayed present in her own body, the night she did not disappear to survive intimacy, the night pleasure did not feel like performance. She closed the lid gently. The soft click of the red top meeting the black base felt ceremonial, final in the best way, passion contained, power protected, desire governed by her. This box was not about hiding anything. It was about preservation.
The joy box was not a place for a man's access. It was a place for her autonomy. She slid it back into the drawer with care. Not buried, kept. There would be no explanation of it to anyone. No invitation, no commentary. It was hers. In that quiet moment, standing alone in her softly lit bedroom, Jasmine understood something that felt almost revolutionary. Intimacy could be shared, but independence was sacred. The light from the sun slipped through the cracks in the blinds and laid soft stripes across Jasmine's pillow. She reached out on instinct, searching for the solid warmth of Anthony's body, the steady rise and fall of his chest beneath her cheek. Her hand found only cool sheets. She blinked herself fully awake and sat up slowly. She was in her own bed, not on the living room floor where she remembered collapsing against him, boneless and laughing and too tired to walk. Her thighs felt pleasantly heavy, her muscles loose and overworked, the sweet soreness of a woman who had not been touched in a long time, and then remembered all at once what it meant to be alive in her own skin. "He carried me," she whispered to herself, smiling. "He actually carried me to bed." For a few seconds, she just sat there, listening to the quiet. No music, no television, no shower running, just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint traffic outside. It almost made the previous night feel unreal, like a dream stitched together from secret wishes she rarely said aloud. She needed proof. Jasmine swung her legs over the side of the bed and padded to the bathroom. Her reflection met her with a sleepy glow. Her hair was a wild halo, curls pointing in a dozen directions, but her skin had a softness she had not seen in months. There was a light in her eyes she could not credit to makeup, lotion, or sleep. "You look different," she told the woman in the mirror. "You look free." She turned sideways and ran a hand down her neck, over her shoulder, across her waist. The memory of his hands rose up to meet her touch. The way he had held her face when he told her to look at him. The way he had wrapped himself around her afterward, as if guarding her from every ghost that had ever tried to claim her heart. Tears that once had come from pain had slipped out while she was wrapped around him, and he had wiped them with his thumb like they were something precious. The thought alone made her chest ache in a tender way. She splashed water on her face, took a breath, and walked down the hall. In the living room, she braced herself for what she expected to see. Pillows on the floor. The end table toppled over where she had tried to push herself away from the pleasure and misjudged her own strength. Glasses abandoned, a blanket twisted somewhere near the couch. She stepped into the room and stopped. Everything was spotless. The end table stood upright in its usual place. The lampshade was straight. The throw pillows rested on the sofa where they belonged. She stepped closer and saw that even the little pencil that usually rolled around on the table was lined up beside a notepad. Her key was no longer under the mat. It sat on the counter attached to her key ring as if it had never left. "Okay," she breathed, both amused and slightly stunned. "So you cleaned up our sin like it never happened." She checked the sink. No champagne flutes. She opened a cabinet. There they were, resting upside down in their usual row, washed and dried. The only sign that the night had been real was the way her body still hummed with the memory of him, the way her skin seemed to remember every place his mouth had lingered, the way her heart softened whenever she pictured his face when he whispered her name and pulled her closer. She leaned against the counter and let herself replay those final minutes. The way he had held her head in his palms and asked her to look at him when she came apart. The quiet reverence in his eyes. The feeling that something inside her had shifted for good. The phone rang and jolted her out of the memory. She reached for it, thinking for a quick second that maybe it was him. "Hello, this is Jasmine." "Good afternoon, Miss Simmons. This is Marie from the Fantasy Massage Parlor, the ultimate getaway. I am calling to confirm your appointment for this evening." Jasmine straightened, the corners of her mouth lifting. She had almost forgotten about the surprise he had set in motion with that mysterious number on the back of his card. "Yes, this is Jasmine. I am still on for tonight." "You are scheduled for the ultimate Hawaiian package," Marie said in a warm, professional tone. "Your limousine will arrive at your residence at 6 o'clock this evening. Pickup address is 51 Sanders Street. Is that correct?" Yes, that is correct. Wonderful. Are there any questions before I let you go? Just one, Jasmine said, then caught herself. Asking if a man with a certain smile and a certain cologne would be there sounded ridiculous, even to her. Actually, no, I think I will just let it be a surprise. Very good, Miss Simmons. We look forward to seeing you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Jasmine said, and hung up. She stood for a moment, phone still in hand, feeling the strange collision of worlds. Last night, Anthony had turned her living room into a private universe that belonged only to the two of them. Tonight, she would be driven across town in a limousine to be pampered because he had decided she deserved to be spoiled. "Where did you go this morning?" she murmured. "And what is going on in that head of yours, Anthony?" She wanted to call him. Her fingers itched to dial his number, to hear his voice and ask why he had slipped out without so much as a note. Then she remembered the way he had looked at her on the beach when he talked about soulmates and stars, the way he had been careful not to rush her. Maybe this was his version of careful, leaving before she had to decide what to say, giving her space to breathe. All right, she told herself, let the man be a mystery for one day. She shook off the questions and turned her attention to getting ready for the evening. The apartment was already clean, thanks to his silent exit, so she started a load of laundry, straightened a few things in her closet, and spent far too long deciding what counted as casually beautiful for a place called the Fantasy Massage. Time slipped away faster than she expected. One moment the clock said 1 in the afternoon, and the next it was almost 5:30. "Girl, move," she scolded herself, rushing to the shower. She chose a soft cream blouse that skimmed her curves without clinging and a pair of fitted dark jeans that made her legs look longer. Simple gold hoops, a thin bracelet, a henna gloss. She wanted to feel beautiful, but not as if she were performing for someone. Just herself, elevated. She was fluffing her hair in the mirror when a knock sounded at the door. Her heart jumped. She checked herself one last time, smoothed imaginary wrinkles from her blouse, and opened the door. A tall man in a black and white tuxedo stood on the other side, hat tilted just low enough to cast a shadow over his eyes. He looked like he had walked out of a film. "Miss Simmons?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "Your car is ready when you are." "Please come in for a moment," she said. "I just need to grab my purse." "Thank you, ma'am," he replied with a polite smile, "but I will wait for you at the limousine." She nodded and closed the door, grabbed her purse and phone, then heard it start to ring just as she touched the knob again. She glanced at the screen. Lewis. "No," she muttered, "not today." She let it roll to voicemail and stepped into the hall, locking the door behind her. As she walked toward the lot, her phone chimed again. A second call. She silenced it without looking. She refused to let his voice follow her into this evening. The limousine idled by the curb, long and sleek. The chauffeur opened the rear door and stepped aside. What happened next made her almost forget her own name. A man stepped out of the car dressed in a straw wrap at his hips, matching bands around his arms and sandals. His chest and shoulders were carved and smooth, his skin a warm brown that caught the light. He smiled and held out his hand. "Hello, Miss Simmons. My name is Jean, and I will be your guide through your Hawaiian fantasy tonight. Anything you need, let me know." Jasmine swallowed and managed a graceful nod as she placed her hand in his. "Nice to meet you," she said. He escorted her into the car. As soon as the door closed and the outside world faded away, soft island music spilled from hidden speakers. A sweet scent floated in the air, coconut and flowers, and something that reminded her of sun on damp skin. In the corner, a blender hummed. "Pina colada or strawberry daiquiri?" Jean asked. "With alcohol or without?" "Pina colada," she said. "With." He poured the drink into a hollowed coconut cup with an umbrella straw and handed it to her. "There you go, Miss Simmons. Welcome to the start of your getaway." She took a sip and could not stop the smile that lifted her lips. "Thank you," she said. The city blurred by outside as the limousine glided down the street. Jasmine leaned back into the leather and let herself relax. The music wrapped around her. The cold drink warmed her chest.
Every mile carried her farther from the old stories she had been repeating in her head. She thought of Anthony, of his laugh, his hands, the way he had said her name when she had been too far gone to pretend she did not need anyone. It was hard to believe he had not planned all of this with more than simple pampering in mind. "Where are you?" she whispered to the air. "Are you behind some door waiting on me? Or did you just send me off to be taken care of and disappear again?" The limo slowed and turned. They pulled up in front of a building with dark-tinted windows and an elegant script over the entrance that read, "Fantasy Massage." The facade was simple, mysterious, giving nothing away. Gene opened the door and stepped out, then offered his hand again, this time without the playful island smile, just quiet steadiness. "Ready, Miss Simmons?" he asked. "As ready as I will ever be," she answered. Inside, the reception area surprised her. No tropical murals, no posters of beaches, no burbling fountain. Just a row of soft chairs along the wall and a single door at the other end of the room. "Please have a seat," Gene said. "Someone will be with you shortly." He disappeared through the far door, leaving her alone with the hush. Jasmine sat and smoothed her robe over her knees. In her mind, even though she was still fully dressed, her heart thudded in an oddly slow rhythm, not frantic, but heavy with expectation. The door opened. A woman in white pants, white tunic, and soft white shoes stepped out. Her hair was pulled back, her face serene. "Miss Simmons?" she asked. "Yes," Jasmine replied. "Welcome to the Fantasy Massage Parlor, the ultimate getaway. My name is Amber. I will be escorting you through the first part of your experience. Please follow me." She led Jasmine into a dressing room with white wicker and plush cushions. On a chair lay a thick white robe folded into a neat square with the initials FM stitched over the left side. Beside it, a pair of matching slippers. "In here, you will find slippers, your robe, and a lockbox for your personal items," Amber explained. "Please remove your clothing, place your belongings in the box, and put on the robe. When you are ready, exit through this door, and I will be waiting on the other side." "Thank you," Jasmine said. When she was alone, she picked up the robe and hugged it to herself. The fabric was softer than anything she owned, almost like a cloud. The slippers felt like walking on pillows. "I need this in my life," she murmured with a smile. She undressed, tucked her clothing and purse into the box, wrapped herself in the robe, and stepped into the hall. Amber waited with that same calm smile. "How is everything so far?" she asked. "Very nice," Jasmine replied. "Maybe too nice. I might not go home." Amber laughed softly. "We hear that a lot. Come, Raymond is ready for you." Jasmine followed her into a bright corner of a larger room. White chairs, white counters, bowls of water. A tall, slim man with a sleek ponytail turned as they approached. His white attire looked as if it had been pressed only moments ago. "Miss Simmons, this is Raymond," Amber said. "He will be giving you your manicure and pedicure." Raymond smiled and gestured toward a reclining leather chair. "Please, make yourself comfortable," he said. "French manicure for both hands and feet, correct?" "You read my mind," Jasmine replied as she settled in. Warm water bubbled around her ankles. He began to work with quiet, efficient movements, shaping, smoothing, massaging. His touch was professional but attentive, and it took less than 10 minutes for her eyes to drift closed. She listened to the gentle splash, the soft whisper of a file, the faint music floating from somewhere unseen. By the time he finished, she felt as if she had already received half a day of pampering. "I feel better already," she said as she admired the delicate white tips on her fingers. "Thank you, Raymond." "My pleasure, Miss Simmons," he replied. Amber reappeared at her side, eyes shining. "He is amazing, yes?" she asked. "He is dangerous," Jasmine answered. "If I ever get rich, I might hire him full-time." Amber laughed again. "Maybe one day. For now, it is time for your facial. Please follow me." The facial room was still white, but softer. Lights lowered, a faint, clean scent in the air. A large man with broad shoulders stood by a reclining table. He looked like he belonged on a field, not in a spa, but his eyes were kind. "Miss Simmons, this is Keith," Amber said. "He will be taking it from here." "Nice to meet you," Jasmine said. He caught her curious look and smiled. I know, I do not look like I do facials. I had an injury that pushed me out of my old life. Skincare pulled me into this one. You would be surprised how many big guys are out here saving people's pores. She laughed, the last of her tension slipping away. Lay back, he said gently. Let me handle the rest. Cool creams, warm cloths, gentle pressure. Once again, she closed her eyes and let go. When he handed her a mirror at the end, she hardly recognized herself. The glow from that morning had deepened into something even softer. You are all set, he said. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I think you are in for something special. Her pulse skipped at that. Amber guided her down a quiet hallway. They stopped in front of a door with one word painted on it in graceful letters, Hawaii. Behind this door is your private room, Amber said. Your fantasy begins on the other side. Enter when you are ready. Jasmine waited until the sound of Amber's footsteps faded. She rested her hand on the knob, took a long breath, and turned it. The room took the air right out of her chest. The walls were painted with a sweeping tropical scene, palms and blue sky and water so vivid it seemed to move. A large aquarium filled one wall, bright fish drifting past coral and rock. The ceiling was painted in warm sunset colors, shades of gold and pink and deep orange. Soft Hawaiian music played from hidden speakers. The whole space felt like stepping into a dream. In the center stood a massage table covered in crisp white sheets. Hello, Miss Simmons, a male voice said. My name is Carl. I will be your masseuse this evening. He was tall, with kind eyes and a professional smile, dressed in the same white as everyone else. I see you indicated on your chart that you are comfortable with a full-body massage except for a few areas, he continued. We will respect those boundaries. For now, I would like you to undress to your comfort level, lie face down on the table, and cover yourself with a towel. I will step outside and knock before I return. Thank you, she said, hiding the small flicker of disappointment that he was not the man her heart had been holding space for. She undressed, folded her robe on a nearby chair, and slipped under the towel. The face cradle cupped her cheeks. The music and the sound of the aquarium bubbler filled her ears. Carl knocked softly. Ready? He asked. Yes, she answered. The first moments were everything they were supposed to be. His hands were confident and skilled, working along the long muscles of her back, loosening knots beneath her shoulders, tracing slow lines down her arms. Her body responded gratefully, sinking deeper into the table. Her mind drifted. At one point, she was sure she would fall asleep. Then the touch disappeared. She heard movement, a quiet murmur, footsteps. The table shifted slightly under new weight. Is everything okay? She asked, her voice muffled in the cradle. Silence for a beat. Then a familiar tone, warm and teasing, washed over her. You ask a lot of questions for someone who is supposed to be relaxing, Anthony said. Her head lifted before she could stop the reflex. He stood near the foot of the table, bare chest catching the painted sunset glow, white pants resting low on his hips. He held a small wooden bowl of oil in his hand and wore the same easy smile that had first undone her in a cafe booth. Anthony, she breathed. In the very scented flesh, he replied. Carl had another client who needed him more than you do. I thought I would take over. How long have you been here? She asked, relief and irritation tangling inside her. Since before you walked in the door, he said. I wanted you to enjoy all of it first. The escort, the nails, the facial, the build-up. You could have answered your phone, she said before she could soften the words. He paused, set the bowl down, and moved to the side of the table where she could see his face. You are right, he said quietly. You deserved that. Her arms were tucked beneath the towel, but part of her wanted to fold them over her chest like armor. I was starting to think I imagined you, she admitted. The flowers, the poem, that night at my place, then nothing. I did not know what to do with that. He rested his hand gently between her shoulder blades, warm and steady. I have been cautious to a fault, he said. I have a history of rushing for the wrong reasons. I did not want you to be another chapter in that pattern. So I kept telling myself to give you space, not crowd you. Let that night breathe. and leave me talking to an automated voice," she said softly. He winced. "Yes," he said.
I went too far the other way. I am sorry, Jasmine, truly. Last night, I wanted to show up and tell you everything, but I also wanted what we had to mean more than a late-night call. So I planned this instead, and told myself I would explain when I could touch you and look you in the eye. She lay there, cheek resting on the pad, listening to the honesty in his voice. It did not erase the sting of waiting, but it softened it. "You had me thinking I was crazy for feeling what I felt," she whispered. "You are not crazy," he said. "I have thought about you every day. Every time I looked at the sky, I wondered which star you were staring at. I just let fear talk louder than wisdom." She let out a slow breath. "All right," she said at last. "Consider this your one free pass." His smile returned, softer this time.
"I will not waste it," he promised. "For now, can I do what you came here for and try to take the rest of that weight off your body?" She hesitated for only a second, then lowered her face back into the cradle. "Do your thing," she murmured. He picked up the bowl. The subtle scent of warm oil reached her first, something with vanilla and sandalwood, and that hint of him she already knew by heart. She felt the first trickle slide along her spine, warm and slow. His hands followed, spreading it with long strokes from the base of her neck all the way to the small of her back. His touch was different from Carl's, more intimate, tuned to every little shift in her breathing. He moved with patience, thumbs pressing small circles beside her spine, palms gliding over the curves of her shoulders, fingers kneading the place where her neck met her skull. "Breathe," he whispered, "in through your nose, out through your mouth." She obeyed. With every exhale, she felt another layer of armor slide away. He worked his way down her arms, kneading the muscles, smoothing over her wrists, pressing the base of each thumb in a way that sent tiny sparks up to her shoulders. Then he moved to her legs, covering her calves and thighs in a soft sheen of oil, his hands strong and careful as he eased out the tightness she had not even known lived there. At first, the sensations were simply soothing. Then something shifted. The longer he worked, the more her body remembered the night before. The way his thumbs dug gently into the muscles at the base of her spine. The way his hands lingered at the curve of her waist. The quiet care in his movements, as if each touch carried both apology and promise. Heat unfurled low in her belly, a slow pulse that matched the rhythm of his strokes. She tried to focus on the music and the sound of water in the aquarium, but her mind kept sliding back to the way he had held her in her living room, to how he had asked to see her face when she let go. A small sound escaped her, half sigh, half surrender. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Yes," she whispered. "I am more than okay." "Good," he replied. "Let it happen. You do not have to be in control all the time." The words slid deeper than muscle. They touched the places inside her that had stayed guarded since the moment she walked in on Louis and Natalie. His hand slowed. He placed one palm gently in the center of her back, between her shoulder blades, and left it there, solid, warm, still. "Jasmine," he said quietly, "you can let this go. All of it. Louis, the betrayal, the way you had to hold yourself together so you would not fall apart. You are safe here, with me, in this room, right now." Her throat closed. Tears she did not see coming slipped out and soaked the cushion beneath her face. "I hate that he did that to you," Anthony said, "but I love that you are still capable of feeling everything you felt last night. That takes strength. Do you know that?" She shook her head as much as the cradle allowed. "I just feel tired," she managed. "That is because you have been carrying more than your share," he answered, "so let a little of it leave your body now." He picked up the bowl again and returned to the base of her spine, working slowly along the muscles on either side, following the lines of tension up to her shoulders. The combination of his words and his touch did something she could not name. It was not the sharp peak of passion from the night before, but a deeper, quieter wave that rose from her chest and rolled through her limbs. She felt herself loosen in a way that had nothing to do with flesh. The walls around her heart thinned just enough for light to slip in, her fingers uncurling, her jaw softening, her breath deepening. When the wave passed, she realized her cheeks were wet, not from pain this time, but from something that felt very close to hope. He covered her back with a warm towel and rested both hands gently over it, as if sealing in the change. "Stay there for a moment," he said quietly. "Let your body remember that feeling." She lay still, eyes closed, listening to the slow beat of the music and the steadier heartbeat inside her own chest. For the first time since Lewis had shattered her trust, the echo inside her did not sound like a hollow ache. It sounded like possibility. "All right," he said after a while. "I'm going to step out and let your escort take you back to the dressing room. Get dressed, take your time. The rest is about you enjoying the afterglow." She lifted her head enough to look at him. "Anthony," she said, "thank you for all of it, for last night, for today, for not letting me forget what it feels like to be wanted and cared for at the same time." He smiled, and there was something almost shy there. "You deserve nothing less," he said. "I will see you soon, and I promise, next time you call, you will not hear my voicemail." He touched his fingers to his lips and then to her forehead in a brief, reverent gesture, then slipped out the door. A few moments later, Amber reappeared, bright as ever. "You are glowing, Miss Simmons," she said. "How was your massage?" Jasmine sat up slowly and pulled the robe around her shoulders. "I do not even have the words," she answered. "I have never felt like that before." Amber's smile widened. "Then we have done our job," she said. "Come, let us get you back to your things." Jasmine dressed, collected her coconut cup and a small gift bag at the front desk, and hugged the staff when they thanked her for coming. Outside, the limousine waited once again. The ride home was quiet, the music softer, as if the driver sensed she needed silence more than conversation. When they reached her building, Jean placed a flower lei gently around her neck and handed her the gift bag. "A small reminder of your evening," he said. "Thank you," she replied, "for everything." Inside her apartment, Jasmine set the bag on the sofa and sank down beside it. She pulled out the contents one by one. A robe identical to the one she had worn at the parlor, matching slippers, her engraved coconut cup, and a small pouch with a square of cloth inside. On the outside of the bag, in neat handwriting, were 2 words, "Smell me." She opened it and lifted the cloth to her nose. His cologne rose up at once, wrapping itself around her like an invisible embrace. It was the same scent that had clung to that first little scrap of paper with his phone number. She laughed under her breath and shook her head. "You are something else," she whispered. She undressed and slipped into the new robe, letting it fall around her like a cloud. She climbed into bed, the lace still around her neck, the cloth tucked under her pillow. Her body was loose and content, her mind pleasantly hazy. For the first time in a long while, she did not fall asleep with Lewis on her mind, or questions about Renee clawing at her thoughts. She drifted off thinking of Anthony's hands on her back, his voice in her ear, and the way her own reflection had looked that morning. She turned her face toward the window, where a slice of sky was visible between the blinds. "Thank you, God, for another day," she whispered. "Thanks for reminding me that I am still here." Then she closed her eyes and let sleep fold gently over her, carrying her into thoughts filled with painted sunsets, warm oil, and a man who looked at her as if she were the only woman left under the stars. Chapter 18. Collision of Truths. The weekend went by just as fast as it came, and getting up for work seemed harder than usual. Jasmine lay on her back staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last few days. The beach, the flowers, the handwritten poem, the soft, unhurried way Anthony had touched her, and the way she had finally let go, body and heart, after holding herself together for so long. He had come into her life like a scene out of a movie, charming, attentive, romantic in a way she had only read about. The surprise at her job, the massage parlor that had somehow felt tailored just for her.
Her body still carried echoes of a night they shared, and the way his hands had memorized her. No one had ever poured that much thought into her comfort, her joy, her emotions. She was happy, but there was a small stone lodged in her chest.
Why all the secrets? The disappearing calls, the disconnected number, the way he would vanish and then reappear like he had never left. Why did everything around him feel magical and slightly untouchable, like a dream she was afraid to wake up from? Her thoughts tried to slip into that confusion, but she forced herself to pull away. The alarm clock buzzed, dragging her back into the present. Work did not care about fantasy. She rolled over, slapped the button, and swung her legs over the side of the bed. She moved through her morning routine on autopilot. Shower, moisturizer, hair, light makeup. As she buttoned her blouse, she turned on her favorite morning talk show, WTFM 90.1. The familiar voice of the host, Tom, filled the room. Today we have Dr. Baxter with us to talk about her new book, Relationships. Welcome. Thank you. I am glad to be on your show this morning. So tell us a little about this book, Tom asked. The book basically talks about different situations relationships go through, when they go from lovers to friends instead of friends to lovers. It deals with how they come together and how they end, if not done in the correct order. It also touches on the involvement of friends and family and how they affect a relationship. Jasmine froze in front of the mirror, mascara wand hovering in midair. The words hit a little too close. Friends and family, how they affect a relationship. Lovers to friends, friends to lovers. Wrong order, wrong timing. Her mind did not go to Anthony. It went straight to Renee and Louis. She snapped the radio off. If she kept listening, she was going to sit down on the edge of the bed and never get up. She finished dressing quickly and headed out the door. By the time she got in the car, the show had moved on. It did not matter. The key part had already done its job. It reminded her of what she could not keep pushing aside. Today, she was going to talk to Renee. It was not just about seeing Renee and Louis outside that building, with their hug that lasted longer than a friendly hello. It was not even just about Louis asking how she was and somehow already knowing things only Renee would know. It was about the way her best friend had started to feel like a stranger. The sudden distance, the excuses, the half-truths about where she had been or who she was with. Renee was the one who had introduced her to Louis. She knew all the history, all the hurt, every tear that had soaked Jasmine's pillow after the breakup. If anyone should have been a safe place, it should have been her. Instead, Renee had become another question mark. By lunchtime, Jasmine had tried calling her twice. No answer. By the end of the workday, the silence grew from annoying to heavy. This was not how they were. They always talked, even if it was just a quick check-in, even if one of them was mad. They had never gone this long with this much tension hanging between them. By the time Jasmine pulled into her apartment complex that evening, she had already made up her mind. She changed into jeans and a soft sweater, fixed her hair into a loose ponytail, and forced herself to eat a small plate of food. Her fork pushed mashed potatoes around her plate more than it actually lifted bites to her mouth. At 8:30, she gave up the pretense of calm. She grabbed her handbag and her keys and headed out. On the drive, old memories fought their way in. The hill back home in Alabama where they used to sit as kids, watching cars pass on the highway as if they were looking out at another world. They had pointed at the nice cars and picked the ones they would buy one day. They had promised each other they would never stay stuck in that small town, that they would move away, go to college, have better lives. That was before Renee's father got transferred to California, before the distance, before boys, before grown-up decisions and lies and betrayals. When Jasmine had bumped back into her at the street festival last year, it had felt like a gift, like God had given her a piece of home back. Renee had laughed the same, hugged the same, called her by the same childhood nickname. For a while, it felt like they had slipped right back into their old rhythm. Now, Jasmine sat at a red light asking herself if she had been talking to a ghost this whole time. She turned into Renee's complex and pulled over for a moment at the entrance. Her hands rested on the steering wheel. She took a long breath in and held it, letting her heart rate slow. Do not go in here wild. Do not accuse. Ask. Listen. Let her explain. Maybe you are wrong. Maybe there is something else going on. You do not want to lose her over a misunderstanding. She repeated that to herself like a prayer. Then she turned the corner and saw it. Renee's car. Next to it, all too familiar, was a car with a customized license plate that made her stomach drop. Lewis won. Her fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Heat crawled up her neck and into her face. For a moment, she considered backing up, pulling away, pretending she had never seen it. What in the world is he doing here? Her jaw clenched. This could work out perfectly. I can deal with both at once. She pulled into a visitor spot, cut off the engine, and sat there, watching the dark windows. There were no lights on, no silhouettes moving past the curtains. She got out and walked toward the building, her legs suddenly heavy. At the door, she paused and knocked. Silence. She pulled out her phone and dialed Renee's number. "Hi, you have reached Renee. Leave a message and I will get back to you." Jasmine stared at the door while the beep sounded in her ear. Something inside her whispered that she should turn around, go home, let this go, protect what little peace she had left. She hung up without leaving a message.
Her hand moved to the doorknob on its own. She tried it. It turned easily. The door opened. Her heart dropped into her stomach. The first thing she saw was a trail of clothing. A shirt on the floor, a pair of jeans, a heel kicked to the side, a man's belt. The kind of mess people made when they could not be bothered to wait to get to the bedroom. She stepped inside slowly and closed the door behind her. The apartment smelled like perfume and sweat and something sweet like coconut lotion. This was not Renee's usual scent. Jasmine knew it. It was the same scent she had smelled in the hallway at the office that day, on the woman leaning over Lewis's desk. The one Renee brushed off with a shrug and a quick laugh. Natalie. Her throat tightened. She moved further inside, every step heavier than the last. The world narrowed into the hallway and the muffled sounds coming from the bedroom. A laugh, a man's strained voice, a woman saying something low and smug, the soft rhythmic creak of a bed that made Jasmine's stomach turn. Each sound twisted the knife a little deeper. Part of her wanted to stop, to turn around and leave before the sight seared itself into her mind forever. Another part knew that not looking would not save her. She already knew what she was going to find. Seeing it would only match the picture to the pain she already felt. She walked down the hallway. At the bedroom door, she paused for a split second. She could hear them clearly now. Renee's voice, Lewis's voice, breathless. Another laugh, playful and careless, that had to be Natalie's. Her hand trembled as she pushed the door open. Her whole world tilted. Lewis was tied to the bedpost, wrists secured with silk scarves. His body was bare except for the sheet tangled around his hips. Oil shone on his chest and shoulders. Renee stood beside the bed, bottle of oil in her hand, skin glistening. Natalie sat at the foot of the bed with her legs crossed, still in a short robe, fingers glossy with oil, watching like she was enjoying a show. Three faces snapped toward the door at the same time. For a full second, no one moved. Jasmine stood there, handbag still in hand, eyes wide and hollow. Her mind went strangely quiet. No screaming, no cussing, just a dull hum in her ears and a single sentence repeating, "You have got to be kidding me." "What the hell?" she finally whispered, voice shaking. "What is going on?" Renee arched a brow, as if Jasmine had interrupted a movie. "What does it look like?" she replied coolly. Lewis jerked against his restraints, panic rushing into his voice. "Jazz, wait! I can explain! Renee, untie me! Renee, untie me right now! This is not what you think!" Natalie slid off the bed and stood up, rolling her neck like she was loosening a sore muscle. She looked Jasmine up and down with a crooked smirk. "Girl, do not act shocked. He was not yours when I got him, and he was not yours when I gave him back. The words cut like glass. Jasmine blinked. Once, twice. Her mind flashed back to the office, to seeing Louis with Natalie, their heads close, his hand on her waist. To Renee stepping in the middle, laughing it off, changing the subject. She had believed her. Her vision blurred and then sharpened with a new kind of clarity. "How long?" she asked quietly.
How long have you three been playing with me? Louis swallowed hard. Please, just let me talk to you. This is not as simple as it looks. She set this up. Renee set all this up. Untie me so I can explain. Set what up? Jasmine snapped. The nights you were sleeping with her behind my back. The scenes at work? The phone calls? Which part did she set up, Louis? The lies or the cheating? Renee let out a short laugh. Oh, now it is all my fault, she said, tossing the oil bottle on the dresser. That is funny. Jasmine turned her burning eyes on her. I trusted you with everything. My history, my heartbreak, my prayers. You knew how bad he hurt me, and you stood right there in my face while you fed him updates on my life. You knew I was trying to heal, and you did this. You trusted me? Renee repeated softly.
Damn, Natalie muttered, touching her jaw. You hit like you mean it. Renee shoved Jasmine back. Have you lost your mind? In my house? Jasmine staggered a step, caught herself, chest heaving. For a moment, she felt 13 again, frozen in a doorway, hearing sounds she did not want to hear, knowing that if she turned away, it would still live inside her. She reached into her handbag, fingers shaking, and pulled out the small pistol she kept tucked there, but rarely thought about. It felt too heavy in her hand, too real in a room that already felt like a nightmare. Both Renee and Natalie stepped back toward the wall instantly, eyes locked on the gun. Jasmine, Renee said, voice suddenly sharper, what are you doing? Louis's whole body went still. Jazz, put it down. Please, I am begging you. Do not do this. She pointed at him first, tears spilling now. Shut up, she said. All of you, just shut up. Her hand moved between them, back to Renee, back to Natalie. Her heart pounded so hard her ears rang. I should just blow your heart out of your chest, she said to Renee quietly. And you, she added, glancing at Natalie, I should shoot you in the face. You knew what he meant to me. You both knew. You sat there and smiled in my face, called yourselves my friend and my man. How could you do this to me? Renee's lip curled. Jasmine, so much about me has changed since we left that hill back home. You walked back into my life like you could just pick up where we left off, like nothing had happened to me. You never once asked what I had been through. You were too busy talking about old memories and your heartbreak story. You saw me as the old Renee. That is on you. Jasmine stared at her, gun trembling. You could have talked to me, she said hoarsely. You could have told me you were hurting. You could have said you were jealous. You could have said anything, but you chose this. Renee shrugged. You want the truth? I never liked you the way you thought I did. You were always the pretty one, the one they picked first, the one they chased. And here you are again, crying over a man who was never really just yours. It was actually nice to know he finally gave you the attention you were clearly craving. Natalie snorted, and more than once, too. Jasmine's fingers tightened around the grip. Every nerve in her body screamed to do something, anything. But underneath the rage, there was still that other part of her. The girl who prayed before bed. The woman who had survived too much already and knew that crossing certain lines meant never coming back. She lowered the gun slightly, still breathing hard. I would have forgiven you one day, she said to Louis quietly. Not to get back with you, but enough to let all this go. You just would not give me space. You kept calling, kept pressing, kept sending flowers and letters like that erased what you did. I was trying to move on. I was trying to heal, and you kept dragging me back into the dirt. She turned to Renee.